There was a time when Bernie Madoff was among the most respected financial advisors in America. His firm would invest his clients' money and seemingly always generate a healthy return, or at least that's what he claimed it was doing. In reality, he was operating the largest Ponzi scheme in history, leading to countless news reporters making the obvious and cringe-worthy pun that Madoff made off with people's money. Before this was public knowledge, his firm was seen as a safe investment. He was beloved by fellow Wall Street executives, even serving as the chairman of NASDAQ. He ran the 6th largest company on Wall Street, overseeing the investment of billions of dollars. But today his name is synonymous with fraud. This is the fall of Bernie Madoff. A Ponzi scheme is quite simple. You have a handful of investors who give you money. Their profit from investing is paid by other investors buying into the scheme. These new people are then given the money of future investors. That's all it is. Money being swapped between those involved in the scheme, who of course don't know this. No Ponzi scheme can last forever. As they gain more investors, they rely on an ever-growing number of future investors to keep it going. How long a Ponzi scheme lasts depends on how crafty its operator is, but sooner or later it will collapse and a lot of people lose their money. In the case of Bernie Madoff, those buying into the scheme believed he was making wise investments on their behalf, and that the success of those investments were behind their returns. But really, their money was simply going into Bernie Madoff's bank account. He would forge investments, inventing companies that didn't exist and then pretending they grew in value. In reality, he was just faking paperwork and redistributing the money his investors give him. But like with all Ponzi schemes, Madoff was one day unable to provide returns for his investors. His company collapsed. In the final days of his scheme, banks were lending him money to pay investors. But when the economic downturn hit in 2008, banks became unwilling to loan him money. And so he literally had no way of carrying on the scheme. He knew the whole thing was about to collapse, which is the most fun part of any Ponzi scheme, but not so much for those behind it. He decided to give away massive bonuses to employees before the collapse. But his 2 sons, who also worked for the firm, thought this was strange. They confronted him and he told them their world was a lie, that everything they had was built on a Ponzi scheme. Being loyal children, they almost immediately went to authorities and turned him in. It was at this point he admitted running the biggest Ponzi scheme of all time. $64 billion were estimated to have been lost due to the scheme. Before long, Bernie Madoff was sentenced to 150 years in prison. Seeing as he was 71 at the time, there is a chance he will die before the sentence is over. As his firm was seen as a safe investment, countless lost their life savings when the scheme collapsed. Some individual investors lost over $1 billion personally. He was able to keep the scheme going for so long as he didn't give returns as high as other firms, but gave a steady mid-level ROI. This meant few suspected the firm, as fraudsters usually fabricate high returns. It was hidden in plain sight. It's thought Madoff ran the Ponzi scheme from the mid-80s until 2008, making it one of the longest lasting to ever be exposed. Much of the money lost to his scheme has now been recovered from secret accounts, but billions are still missing. Only Madoff knows where the money might be found. Bernie Madoff is in prison. One of his sons committed suicide and the other died of cancer. But to his credit, keeping a Ponzi scheme going that long is not easy, and he did try to give large bonuses to his staff. So in a way, he's a bit like Gandhi.